When someone points a finger at us, spreads a rumor, or questions our motives, the very first instinct inside us is to jump up and defend ourselves. We feel this burning need to explain, to clarify, to prove that we are right and they are wrong. It feels almost like survival, because deep down, we think if we don't defend, people will believe the lie. But here's the hidden trap. The very moment you start defending yourself, you've already given away your power. You've stepped onto their stage, playing by their rules, and whether you realize it or not, you've entered a game that was never designed for you to win. Think about the last time you defended yourself against something unfair. Did it really change the other person's mind? Or did it only drag you deeper into the argument, leaving you frustrated and exhausted? Defense rarely convinces. It usually just fuels the fire. And that's the trap most of us fall into. We think our words will fix the misunderstanding, but often our words just give the other person more to twist, more to argue against, more ammunition to keep the conflict alive. The psychology is simple. When you defend, you look guilty even when you're not. Imagine someone says, "You're selfish." If your first response is, "No, I'm not. I've always been there for people. I care. I do so much." Do you see what's happening? You've just validated the accusation by rushing to prove it wrong. You've given their words credibility by reacting to them. But if you stand calm, if you smile and let their words hang in the air, suddenly the weight of the accusation rests on them, not on you. The silence makes them question their own statement. And that's the shift most people never experience, because they're too busy defending themselves to realize silence is stronger. Every defense is an energy leak. You're pouring emotional fuel into a fire that burns you more than anyone else. And the people who provoke you, they know this. That's why they attack in the first place. They want the reaction. They want you scrambling, explaining, justifying. Because as long as you're defending, you're not leading, you're following. You're following their frame, their narrative, their agenda. That's why defending yourself feels so draining. Because you're not living in your truth, you're living in their accusation. The truth doesn't need a defense. The truth stands on its own. If someone calls the sky green, you don't need to waste your breath arguing it's blue. You just look up. You just know. And if people around you can't see the truth, no amount of your explanation will change that. The only thing your defense will prove is that their opinion matters too much to you. When you stop defending, you step into a different kind of strength. You begin to realize that not everyone deserves an answer. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every accusation deserves your voice. There is freedom in saying nothing. There is power in knowing who you are so deeply that someone else's misunderstanding can't shake it. But this takes courage, because silence feels risky. We fear silence will make us look guilty. We fear people will believe the lie if we don't fight it. But here's the paradox, though. The louder you defend, the guiltier you look. The calmer you remain, the stronger you appear. True confidence is not in proving yourself, it's in not needing to. So the next time you feel that surge of defensiveness rise in your chest, pause. Ask yourself, am I about to defend because it's necessary, or because my ego is uncomfortable? Am I trying to protect the truth, or just protect my pride? Most of the time, you'll realize you're defending out of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood. And that's when you choose differently. You breathe. You let the words pass. You don't step into their trap. Because here's the secret they don't tell you. When you stop defending yourself, you don't lose respect, you gain it. People start noticing your calm. They start realizing you don't get rattled by every opinion, every criticism, every rumor. And ironically, the less you defend, the less you need to. Because your silence builds a reputation of strength. A reputation of someone who doesn't get dragged into petty battles. A reputation of someone who doesn't just talk about confidence, but lives it. The hidden trap of defending yourself is that it keeps you small, reactive, and powerless. The hidden strength of letting go is that it makes you untouchable. There's a quiet kind of power that most people never learn to use, and it's called calm boundaries. A boundary isn't a wall you shout about, it's not a sign you wave in someone's face, and it's not a heated argument about what you will or won't tolerate. A true boundary doesn't need to be defended. It simply exists firm and steady in the way you carry yourself, in the way you respond, and more importantly, in the way you don't respond. When most people think of boundaries, they think of confrontation. They imagine themselves saying, "Don't talk to me like that," or "I won't accept this behavior." And yes, sometimes words are necessary, but the deepest boundaries aren't declared out loud, they're lived quietly. They show up in your body language, in the calm look on your face, in your willingness to walk away from chaos without feeling the need to explain yourself. That's the power of calm boundaries. They don't scream, they don't defend, they don't justify, they simply hold. Picture a stone in a river. The water rushes and crashes around it, but the stone doesn't yell at the water to stop. It doesn't argue with the current. It doesn't try to prove its strength. It just stands, steady, silent. And eventually the water flows around it. That's what a calm boundary looks like in your life. People can throw words at you, try to provoke you, even push against your patience. But if your boundary is steady, they eventually realize their energy is wasted. The real power of a calm boundary is that it protects your peace without costing you your energy. Every time you lash out or over-explain, you drain yourself. But when you set a quiet limit, by refusing to engage in arguments, by calmly removing yourself from negativity, by not allowing someone to drag you into their storm, you save your strength. You prove that your peace is not up for negotiation. And here's the interesting thing. Calm boundaries don't just protect you, they also teach others how to treat you. When you refuse to entertain certain behavior, people notice. When you don't argue with every insult, people realize their words won't get a rise out of you. When you stay calm while others lose control, they start to feel the contrast between their chaos and your composure. Without saying a word, you've taught them what's acceptable. That's the quiet power of example. Some people will test your boundaries. They'll push, they'll provoke, they'll try to get you to react. That's not a sign your boundary is weak. It's a sign it's working. Because boundaries aren't meant to stop people from trying, they're meant to stop you from crumbling when they do. The strength isn't in making the world gentle, it's in making yourself steady no matter how the world behaves. Calm boundaries also free you from the trap of over-explaining. You don't have to justify why you didn't answer the phone, why you didn't attend the argument, why you walked away from the drama. You don't owe a press release for every choice you make. Your calm decision is enough. The people who truly respect you won't demand explanations. They'll respect the way you carry yourself. And the ones who keep demanding, they'll eventually realize that you won't play their game. The most powerful people, you know. The ones you admire, they aren't the loudest in the room. They don't waste time defending themselves against every critic. Their strength comes from quiet conviction, from boundaries that don't need to be shouted to be respected. They understand that energy is precious, and they spend it only on what matters, not on proving their worth to those determined not to see it. So imagine yourself in your next conflict. Someone raises their voice. They throw accusations. They want you flustered, defensive, maybe even broken. But instead, you sit there calmly. Your voice stays even. Your words are few. You don't argue. You don't bite the bait. You don't match their storm. Instead, you let them realize they're arguing with themselves. That moment right there is when you discover the power of calm boundaries. It's not about winning an argument. It's about refusing to enter one. It's not about showing how tough you are. It's about showing how untouchable your peace is. And it's not about building walls. It's about building self-respect so strong that no one can shake it with words. The power of calm boundaries is this: when you stop needing to declare them, when they simply radiate from the way you live, you no longer have to fight for your peace. You simply stand in it. And nothing is more powerful than that. When someone challenges us, insults us, or questions us, our natural reaction is to jump into verbal combat. We want to fire back, prove a point out with them, and make sure the last word is ours. It feels like strength to argue. It feels like power to win a debate. But the truth is, verbal combat rarely leads to victory. It usually just leaves both people exhausted, bruised, and more entrenched in their own positions. Silent strength, on the other hand, does something words never can. It changes the entire atmosphere of the exchange. Words can be twisted. They can be misquoted, and taken out of context. The louder you argue, the easier it becomes for someone to spin your words against you. But silence is untouchable. It can't be misquoted. It can't be argued with. It forces the other person to sit with their own words, to hear themselves echo in the space where your defense should have been. And often, that's when their own noise begins to collapse in on itself. There is a weight in silence that no shouted sentence can carry. When you refuse to engage in combat, you shift the power dynamic. Suddenly, they are the only one swinging, the only one yelling, the only one desperate to be heard. And the more they fight, the clearer it becomes to everyone watching where the real weakness lies. Silent strength exposes insecurity without you ever having to point it out. Think about the people in your life who carry real authority. The ones who walk into a room and instantly command respect. They're rarely the ones speaking the loudest or arguing the hardest. Their presence does the talking. Their calm composure is what disarms people. Silent strength doesn't mean you never speak. It means when you do speak, your words carry 10 times the weight because they are rare, measured, and deliberate. Verbal combat is a trap. Once you step into it, you start playing by someone else's rules. You match their tone, their pace, their anger, and before long, you've lost control of yourself. You might even say things you don't mean, things you regret later, just because you wanted to win in the moment. Silent strength, however, is never reactive. It doesn't get dragged into the chaos. It chooses stillness, not because it's weak, but because it knows true power is control over yourself, not control over someone else. There's also a deeper respect that silence earns. When someone attacks you and you don't respond in kind, it unsettles them. They expect resistance, they expect a fight. When you don't give it to them, they're left with nothing but their own reflection. That pause you create makes them more aware of their own behavior than any clever comeback ever could. And the people around you, the ones observing, they see it too. They notice who lost control and who didn't. They notice who had to raise their voice and who didn't need to. Silent strength speaks volumes without making a sound. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you accept mistreatment or let people walk all over you. It means you understand the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is impulsive. It gives your power away. Responding is intentional. It shows you're still in control. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Other times it's a calm, short statement delivered without emotion. Both come from strength. Neither requires combat. There's an old saying, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, and the pig likes it. Verbal combat is wrestling in the mud. Silent strength is stepping out of the pen entirely. It's refusing to get dirty in the first place. You let the other person thrash around, but you remain clean, calm, and untouchable. That's not weakness, that's mastery. So the next time someone tries to bait you into a fight, ask yourself, do I want to spend my energy proving myself to someone determined not to see me clearly? Or do I want to keep my peace and let my silence do the heavy lifting? Because the truth is, silence isn't empty. It's full of self-respect. It's full of dignity. It's full of strength that no argument could ever match. Silent strength is not about having the last word. It's about realizing you never needed one in the first place. One of the easiest ways to lose yourself is to hand over control of your story to people who don't deserve to hold the pen. The moment you start defending yourself to every critic, every rumor, every misunderstanding, you're no longer living your truth. You're living in reaction to someone else's version of you. And here's the hard reality. People will always have opinions. They will create their own stories about who you are, what you've done, and why you've done it. If you spend your life chasing every false narrative to correct it, you'll never have time to actually live your own. Reclaiming control over your narrative begins with realizing that you do not owe everyone an explanation. You don't have to justify your decisions, your boundaries, or your peace to anyone. Most of the time, the people demanding explanations don't want to understand you. They want to control you. They want to keep you on the defensive, explaining yourself so they can keep poking holes, keep shifting the target, keep you off balance. And the moment you realize this, you see how pointless it is to keep handing them that power. When you stop explaining, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop putting your value up for debate. You start living in alignment with what you know to be true about yourself, rather than what others are trying to convince you is true. That's when your narrative becomes yours again. It's not about arrogance, it's about clarity. You know who you are, and that knowledge doesn't require a stamp of approval. Think about it this way: the people who truly know you don't need an explanation, and the people determined to misunderstand, you won't accept one anyway. So why waste your breath? Every moment you spend defending yourself is a moment stolen from building, creating, growing, and simply being at peace. That's the real cost of defense. It robs you of the energy you could be using to write your own story. Taking back your narrative also means being selective with your voice. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every accusation deserves clarity. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, because silence communicates that your identity is not up for debate. It shows that you're not in the business of convincing, you're in the business of living. And make no mistake, when you reclaim your narrative, some people won't like it. They'll call you distant, arrogant, or even defensive for not being defensive. That's because they're losing the control they once had over you. They can no longer pull you into endless debates or keep you trapped in cycles of proving yourself. They'll have to sit with the discomfort of realizing their words no longer carry weight in your world. And that's okay, because your story was never meant to be written by them in the first place. The beauty of living this way is that your life itself becomes the response. You don't have to argue about who you are. Your actions, your consistency, your character over time will do the speaking. The best way to reclaim your narrative isn't through explanations, it's through embodiment. Be who you are, without apology, and let that be the story that gets told. Eventually, people catch on. They may not admit it out loud, but they can't deny what they see. And here's the freeing truth: you don't need everyone to believe in you. You don't need everyone to prove. You don't need the whole world to agree on your story. You only need to live it with honesty and strength. The right people, the ones who matter, will see it without you saying a word. The wrong people, the ones who want to twist your narrative, will lose interest when they realize you're no longer playing their game. So the next time you feel that urge to jump in and defend yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it truly serves me, or because I'm afraid of how others see me? If it's fear, let it go. Protect your story. Protect your peace. Remember that the loudest voices are not always the truest ones. The truest voice will always be your own, steady and clear, even if it's silent. Reclaiming your narrative is about living in such a way that you no longer need to chase opinions or correct falsehoods. It's about owning your truth so fully that no rumor, no criticism, no accusation can pull you away from it. And once you stand in that place, you realize something powerful. Your story has always been yours. You just had to stop giving it away. There is something almost unsettling about a person who stays calm when everyone else is losing control. Stillness has a way of creating silence in a room full of noise, of making people pause and notice, of shifting the balance of power without a single word being spoken. And that's because stillness is not just the absence of movement. It's the presence of control. The psychology of stillness is rooted in strength, in self-mastery, and in the understanding that you don't have to meet chaos with chaos. Most people are conditioned to react instantly. Someone raises their voice, they raise theirs back. Someone accuses them, they rush to defend themselves. Someone pushes, and they push harder. But when you choose stillness, you break that pattern. You refuse to be predictable. You deny the other person the reaction they were counting on. And when you do that, you shift the dynamic entirely. You're no longer dancing to their tune. You've created your own rhythm, one that unnerves them because it's unfamiliar. Stillness communicates more than words ever could. It says, I am not threatened by you. I am not controlled by you. I will not give you the satisfaction of seeing me break. That quiet confidence speaks louder than shouting ever could. It unsettles those who thrive on drama because they don't know how to fight someone who doesn't swing back. They throw their words like weapons, and they fall flat against the wall of your composure. From a psychological standpoint, stillness also flips the spotlight. When you don't react, the other person's behavior becomes the only thing visible. Their anger, their insecurity, their desperation, all of it is exposed. If you remain calm, people stop focusing on what was said about you and start noticing how the other person is acting. They can't hide behind your reaction anymore. They're forced to sit in their own chaos. In that way, stillness doesn't just protect you, it quietly holds others accountable for their behavior. But make no mistake, stillness isn't easy. It requires training. It requires emotional discipline. It requires being willing to sit with the discomfort of not defending yourself, not firing back, not trying to control how others see you. And that's why so few people master it, because stillness feels unnatural at first. It feels like weakness. It feels like letting someone win. But the more you practice it, the more you realize it's the exact opposite. It's not surrender, it's strategy. It's not giving up. It's choosing not to waste your energy where it won't make a difference. Think about the leaders you admire most. The ones who could calm a room simply by walking into it. They didn't need to scream to be heard. They didn't need to argue to prove a point. Their power came from restraint, from composure, from the way they carried themselves with steady confidence. That's the psychology of stillness. It magnifies your authority by proving you're not ruled by your emotions. And here's the other side of it. Stillness isn't just about what others see. It's about what happens inside of you. When you choose calm over chaos, you protect your own mental state. You stop letting adrenaline and anger hijack your mind. You create space to think clearly, to see the bigger picture, to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. Stillness isn't passive. It's active control over yourself. It's choosing not to let someone else dictate your emotions. There's a reason why stillness is often compared to strength in martial arts, in philosophy, in spirituality. Because the person who can remain unmoved when provoked is always the one who holds the real power. Anyone can explode. Anyone can lash out. That's easy. But to remain centered, calm, steady, that's rare, that's discipline, that's mastery. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, remind yourself of this truth. Storms exhaust themselves. Chaos burns out. People who lash out eventually run out of words. And when that moment comes, the only thing left standing is the one who stayed still. That's when you realize you never needed to fight to win. You only needed to remain grounded long enough for the storm to pass. The psychology of stillness teaches us that calmness is not weakness, it's presence, it's awareness. It's the ability to hold your ground without being swept away. And once you learn to live from that place, nothing and no one can take your peace from you without your permission. That's real strength. There's a certain strength that comes not from winning arguments, not from proving your point, not from getting the last word, but from simply walking away with dignity. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've realized that your peace is worth more than your pride, and that no battle is worth sacrificing your self-respect. We live in a world that glorifies the fighter, the one who never backs down, the one who always has a comeback, the one who stays until the bitter end. But the truth is, the most powerful people are not those who fight every fight. They're the ones who know which fights are not worth entering in the first place. Dignity is found in that choice. It's in recognizing that not every challenge deserves your attention, and not every critic deserves your energy. Walking away with dignity is not an escape, it's a decision. A decision to protect your time, your energy, and your mental well-being. It's a way of saying, I value myself too much to stay here and wrestle with something that will only drain me. That is strength, that is maturity, that is control. Anyone can stay and fight. It takes a stronger person to know when to leave. And here's what's important to understand: when you walk away with dignity, you are not running from the conflict, you are rising above it. You are showing that you are not defined by someone else's words, opinions, or anger. You're not abandoning your worth, you're proving it. Because the truth is, if someone tries to pull you into a battle where the only outcome is chaos, you don't need to fight to win. You win by refusing to play. People might say, but if I walk away, won't they think they've won? Let them. Because victory isn't about what they think, it's about what you know. And you know that your silence, your calm, your choice to step back is not a loss, but a declaration of self-control. Their idea of winning is keeping you engaged in the fight. Your idea of winning is walking out with your peace intact. Which do you think carries more power? When you walk away with dignity, you also give yourself the gift of perspective. You no longer react in the heat of the moment. You give yourself space to reflect, to decide if the issue even matters in the long run, to choose your response instead of being trapped in reaction. That pause, that distance, is where wisdom lives. It's where clarity replaces chaos and strength replaces impulse. And let's be honest, not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone earns the right to hear your defense, your explanations, your emotions. When you walk away, you are drawing a line that says, I don't give myself cheaply. My attention is valuable. My peace is priceless. If you want access to me, you must come with respect. That message is louder than any words you could ever throw back in an argument. Walking away with dignity also sets an example. Others notice it. They see that you didn't allow yourself to be dragged into a pit. They see that you carried yourself with calm, with grace, with composure. And while the other person might be loud in the moment, time always reveals the truth. Later, people remember who stayed calm, not who shouted the most. They remember who walked away with respect, not who stayed and fought to the point of destruction. It's important to remember that walking away doesn't make you invisible. It makes you untouchable. You rise above the noise. You free yourself from the cycle of proving, arguing, defending. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your narrative. That's what dignity looks like in action. So the next time you're tempted to stay and fight for the last word, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my dignity? And if the answer is no, have the courage to step away. Hold your head high, keep your calm, and walk out knowing that strength is not in how loudly you speak, but in how gracefully you leave. Because in the end, dignity doesn't come from winning battles. It comes from knowing you never needed to fight them in the first place. At the end of the day, life will always hand you situations where people misunderstand you, misjudge you, or even try to provoke you. You can't control what they say, but you can always control how you respond. And the truth is, you don't need to defend yourself to everyone. You don't need to prove your worth to those who are determined not to see it. Your calm boundaries, your silent strength, your ability to remain still, and your choice to walk away with dignity, those are the real markers of power. Defensiveness drains you, but composure protects you. Arguments fade, but dignity lasts. And silence, when used with wisdom, speaks louder than any defense ever could. The people who truly matter will know your character without explanation, and the people who don't will never be satisfied with one anyway. So stop wasting your energy on battles that steal your peace. Your greatest strength is not found in proving, but in being. It's in living your truth so steadily that no rumor, no criticism, no accusation can move you from it. When you choose calm over chaos, when you let silence carry your strength, when you walk away with grace instead of staying to fight, you're not losing. You're showing a kind of mastery that very few people ever achieve. So remember this, never defend yourself to those who want to misunderstand you. Let your life be your defense, let your peace be your power, and let your silence be your strength. Because the moment you stop needing to explain who you are, you've already won.